They used to say he was just an athlete. A man who ran for records, fought for fans, and carried his country on his shoulders under stadium lights and camera flashes. But that morning, inside the grand walls of Windsor Castle, everything changed. Prince William, the future King of England, stepped forward. Not as a royal, but as a messenger of honor. With a single, deliberate motion, the weight of a centuries-old sword, he knighted a man many called a champion. But this wasn't just a ceremonial nod. It was a bold message. Because why this man? And why now? The ceremony was pure royalty, crimson carpet, shining armor, golden crests, and centuries of tradition echoing through the hall. But behind the grace and poise, came whispers. Some said it broke the mold. Knighthood, they claimed, was meant for war heroes, not sports stars. But what most people forget is that battles come in many forms. And this man, this athlete, had fought more than anyone saw. He fought injuries. He fought critics. He fought defeat. He fought himself. And somehow, he won, with millions watching, and millions more inspired. He didn't come from royalty. He came from humble beginnings. From dirt fields and broken bones. From silence, rejection, and sweat. And now, he stood before a prince. Not as a subject, but as an equal. And Prince William? He didn't just shake hands and smile. He raised that royal sword, laid it on both shoulders, and said, "Arise, sir." And just like that, the world watched a moment that shook tradition to its core. Some praised it, finally, the crown honors the people. Others questioned it, has knighthood become just another popularity contest? But maybe, that's exactly what makes it powerful. Because true recognition isn't always about what you do on a battlefield. Sometimes, it's about what you represent off of it. This man, now sir, became more than a sports icon. He became proof that grit matters. That honor isn't passed down, it's earned. That sometimes, the sword of a prince is more than a symbol, it's a statement. And Prince William? He could have played it safe. Chosen someone from a more traditional path. But he didn't. He chose someone who bled on the field. Who inspired change without giving speeches. Who made us believe, not in fairy tales, but in fight. The ceremony ended. The cameras clicked. The palace doors closed. But what followed was a ripple. A ripple that traveled far beyond the marble halls of Windsor. It moved through headlines, locker rooms, dinner tables, and timelines. Because this wasn't just a royal title, it was a cultural moment. And like every cultural moment, it stirred conversation. On the evening news, the footage replayed, the bow, the sword, the solemn gaze of Prince William. On social media? It exploded. Some called it historic. Others called it strategic. And a few, the ones who always speak loudest, asked, is he really worthy of this? But the man who now carried the title Sir didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because legacy speaks louder than tweets. He returned to the people. Not with a crown or an entourage, but with humility. He visited schools where his story had already become legend. He stood before kids who wore his jersey not just because he played hard, but because he cared harder. He shook hands with fans, hugged strangers, and reminded them that this wasn't about being royal. It was about being real. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do with a sword is not to fight but to lift someone else up. And this athlete? He didn't ask for a knighthood. He never chased a crown. But for decades, he gave the world something most leaders forget to give. Hope. The kind of hope that comes when you rise after every fall. When you run even after they say you're too old, too slow, too broken. When you stand for something, even when you're not standing on a podium. That's the thing about impact. It doesn't need approval. It needs action. And the man now called Sir had already earned his honor long before the ceremony. Prince William's sword? That was just the confirmation. The world had already been watching. Now, the world was listening. In an interview days later, the knighted athlete was asked, "What does this mean to you?" He paused, smiled softly, and said, "It's not about the title. It's about making sure the next kid believes they're worthy too."